Over the course of this screencast, we'll be looking at EC2Stack. EC2Stack is a EC2 compatibility interface for Apache Cloudstack. It is wrote using Python and it is available on the PyPI Python software repository. It requires Python 2.7 to run and can easily be installed using pip. If we come over to our command line and we execute pip install EC2Stack, it will go ahead and we'll download EC2Stack and all required packages for it. When it has completed, there will be a few new binaries in our path folder. This includes EC2Stack, which will start the server, EC2Stack configure, which will configure the server, EC2Stack register, which will allow a user to register their API keys, and EC2Stack remove, which will allow a user to remove their API keys. If we run EC2Stack straight away, we're going to get an error saying it is not configured. So we'll just go ahead and run EC2Stack configure to configure EC2Stack for the first time. First of all, we're prompted for a bind address. This is the address that EC2Stack will listen on. For the sake of this screencast, I'm just going to go ahead and use localhost. I'm going to let it bind on the default port of 5000. I'm asked for my Cloudstack host. For the sake of this screencast, I am using exascale.ch. They are a cloud provider and they use Cloudstack for their backend. This means they expose a Cloudstack API. This API is on api.exascale.ch. It is on port 443. They use HTTPS and the path is /compute. Next, I'm asked for the name of a custom disk offering. With Amazon, when a user creates a volume, they are always required to pass a disk size. With Cloudstack, this is not the case. Cloudstack has different disk offerings. Some have hard code sizes, and some allow for a custom size. In order to process AWS requests successfully, EC2Stack must be aware of the name of the custom disk offering it can use to create user volumes. For the sake of this screencast, I'm just going to go ahead and use custom. Finally, I need to input a zone name. With Amazon, when a user brings up an instance, the instance will default to a certain zone based on the Amazon API. With Cloudstack, this is not the case. So what we do here is we let the user set a default zone via EC2Stack. This zone will be used if no zone is provided. Otherwise, the zone provided by the user will be used. So go ahead and type in chgv2. This is the default zone for exascale. Next, I'm asked to type in an instant type mapping. Instant types define the compute power of the virtual machine. So on Amazon, I have instant types of M1 small, M1 large, and M1 medium, which have a certain amount of RAM and processing power. On Cloudstack, I could have a bunch of different instant types. These are defined by the Cloudstack administrator, and they might not directly map up to the names of Amazon-based offerings. For this reason, we allow a user to define different mappings here. For the sake of the screencast, I'm going to create a mapping between M1 small and the Cloudstack service offering micro. I do not wish to add any more mappings, so I'm going to go ahead and type no. It will go ahead and we'll create our configuration file and initialize our database. We can now run EC2Stack by typing EC2Stack. The server starts up, it binds to localhost on port 5000 and is ready to accept requests. Before we can use an Amazon utility against it, we must do an initial user registration of our API key. To do this, we use the command EC2Stack register. So we can see here that the usage information says that we set our host, our EC2Stack server address, which in our case is HTTP localhost 5000, and then we need to go get our API keys. So I'm using Exascale, so if I come over to the Exascale console, I click this drop down arrow here and I go to account details. I come over to API details and scroll down. I can get my API key, just copy and paste it over, and I can go ahead and get my secret key as well. Okay, our user has successfully been registered. I'm now going to go ahead and install the Amazon command line utility AWS CLI. We'll use this for querying EC2Stack. This is going to go ahead and download Amazon CLI just like we did with EC2Stack. Again, Amazon CLI needs to be configured. So we just type AWS configure and it brings us into this wizard. Again, we have to tell it our secret key and API key. So we can just copy and paste them over again. We need to let it know a region name. For the sake of usage with EC2Stack, this can just be anything. I'm just going to go US West 2, and we need a default output format. I'm just going to go with table because it looks pretty. Okay, so that's configured and ready for usage. Let's go ahead and run some commands. The first one I'm going to run is AWS EC2, and we set our endpoint to be EC2Stack, which is listening on localhost on port 5000. I'll just go ahead and run describe security groups. Okay, so there's the command executing. If we scroll up, we can see we have one security group one available. It is called default. It has port 22 open for TCP, and it has ICMP type 0 open and ICMP type 8 open, which is great. Let's go ahead and add a new security group. So if we go AWS EC2 endpoint again is equal to localhost on port 5000. The command we want to use is create security group. I want to set my group name to be screencast. I want to set my group description to be, sorry, it's just description, to screencast group. Okay? So we'll go ahead here and create a security group. We can see that the security group is created here. If we come over to the Exascale user interface and go over to firewalling, we can see a security group also exists here, which means the command was successfully executed. Next, we want to go ahead and add a rule to this security group. So I'm going to go ahead and run AWS EC2 endpoint is equal to localhost on port 5000, which again is our EC2Stack server. I'm going to go authorize ingress, authorize security group ingress. Our group name is screencast. Our protocol is TCP. Our from port is 80, and our to port is 80. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and it will go ahead and return true. If I relaunch describe security groups, I can see that it returns my new security group. We can see the group name is screencast. We can see the description is screencast group. We see it as port 80 open on TCP. We can now go ahead and import an SSH key pair. To do this, we launch the command AWS EC2 endpoint is equal to localhost on port 5000. The command is import key pair. Key pair name is going to be screencast. The public key material exists on my file system in my home folder in SSH in demo.pub. I go ahead and hit enter. We'll go ahead and create that key pair. Again, if I come over to the Exascale UI and click into the SSH key option, I can see that this SSH key is there. So now I can go ahead and look at all the images that are available on Exascale for me to bring up. To do this, I run AWS EC2 endpoint is equal to HTTP on localhost on port 5000, and we run describe images. We can see that there's a bunch of images here. In order to use them, we need to copy down their image ID. For the sake of this screencast, I'm going to boot up a CentOS 6.5 64-bit machine with a 10 gig disk. So I'm going to copy down this ID here. So I've copied that into my clipboard. I'm going to go ahead and run a final command that will bring up an instance for me. So the command is AWS EC2. The endpoint again is localhost on 5000, which is my EC2Stack server. The command this time is run instances. The image ID is going to be the one I copied from above. The key name is going to be screencast. Security group names are going to be default and screencast. And I want to submit a script that I have on my machine that will create a index.html file, and it will create a web server. So when my instance comes up, I should be able to browse to its IP address and see a web server running on it. So I'm going to set user data to a script that is on my file system in my home folder, and it's called webserver.sh. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. Okay, I've made a mistake there in the command perimeters. It should have been security groups rather than group names. It's fine, I'll just go ahead and relaunch the command. So security and default screencast and user data again. We'll launch the command. We come over to the Exascale UI. We can see an instance here is starting. It is based on our CentOS 6.5 64-bit image. It is part of the default security group and is part of the screencast security group. If I click into this instance, we can see that it also has the key pair here. We can see that our command is completed here, and we get some information back about it. We get the image ID, the instance ID, the key pair name that is in use, the availability zone that it's been brought up on, and the security groups. If I go ahead and I copy down its IP address and I just ping that IP address to make sure the machine is fully booted. Okay, the machine is fully booted because it's responding to pings, so I should be able to go ahead and SSH into it using the private key of the SSH key that was injected. So I'll go ahead and run SSH root at that IP address, and I'll go ahead and set the path to the private SSH key. I'll say yes, and we're successfully logged into the instance. If I run netstat line tap to see what services are listening, I can see that there is something binded to HTTP. So if we take the IP address of our instance, come over to our web browser and type it into the URL bar and press enter, we'll see that this web page is being served, hello from Cloudstack, from that instance we have just brought up. This means that our security group rule from the screencast security group to open up port 80 worked successfully. We can now exit out of this virtual machine. If we scroll back up and get the ID of this virtual machine, it's this one here, we can terminate it. So we go AWS EC2 endpoint is equal to localhost on port 5000. And we want to terminate instances, and the instance ID is that one that we copied. Press enter. We'll go ahead and execute that command. We come over here. We see the status has changed to stopping. I'm just going to click over here. It's still saying stopping. Okay, it has finished executing here. If I reload this page, we can see the instance is gone. We'll get information back over here saying it's gone as well. And that's a brief overview of some of the commands that EC2Stack can handle. If you want any more information, please leave a comment below and we will get back to you. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this screencast.